A day off spent wandering into the woods. I cherished my days off, but such days could be bittersweet because the next day would be the doldrums and the mechanical routines of work. The forest trek simply had been one of my rare treats after a monotonous week. It seemed all my activities had been solitary, whether going to a movie, dining in a restaurant, or simply walking. I had been estranged from my family, and because of my past cruelty and humiliation, had outgrown the need for friends. I would drive out to wooded areas of interest, seeking out new places to explore and cross off another spot from my list. The recent trails I selected had increasingly been a bit out of the way and in unfamiliar surroundings, leading me to having to park in odd but hidden spots off the road with hopes of not being discovered. I did like to search and find uncharted paths where very few have been. This time I found such a trail that had been old and grown over, but had been a trail nonetheless. It had been a mile or two out of kicking away some brush and vines anchored to the ground as if an explorer rediscovering an ancient forgotten jungle path to some lost city. As I had desired, I had been alone, although I could hear an eerie calm the further I went. The more the sounds of scurrying animals interrupted my serenity. Though the only human presumably for miles, I had not been alone. Oddly enough, the accumulated sounds of animals both ahead and behind me seemed to be heading in the same direction I was. The further I got, the footfalls of various species could be heard by their aggregate sound, all heading in the same direction. Yet I couldn't help finding myself in sort of a lockstep with them all, as if marching to the same destination. What drove me onward when I should have ran away frightened? Another 2 miles further, or should I say we, reached the end. Me and a variety of species just about representing the array of fauna in the Tri-County area had reached an acre of clear dirt where only grass and some small stubborn-rooted weeds grew. The other animals stood by and around me, fearless when my being within 20 feet should have sent any one of them cascading for any available cover. Together we all stood in the middle of the clearing as if we all shared the same undifferentiated fate. Just as I finished observing my surroundings, it began. The ground trembled and shook enough to break apart, retracting as if forming jaws or a gaping all-encompassing maw. The tranquil animals surrounding me, as if collectively recognizing danger, attempted to run away in the opposite direction. It had been too late for them. I had somehow come to my senses just before they ran away, and I lunged for the root of a dead tree, grasping it and working my hands to embrace the trunk. I held on to the dead tree as the jagged pieces of bark sunk deeper into my palms, and I watched as the ground continued to shake. The screams of animals clawing the dirt, desperate for any impediment as I had, all to withstand the downfall into a massive pit. Each had vanished and the area of the abyss closed in as the banks flattened out, as if jaws forever shut. Now it appeared to me to have never existed, and if I loosened my grip slightly at any moment of its feeding, I'd have joined the rest of the terrified animals. It must have fed itself from animals and plants and other raw materials, and after it fed, no one would have noticed any difference except for the missing vegetation that once sprawled over the now barren strip of land. Other animals would cross and fly over the area oblivious to the death and destruction below. Who knows when it would feed next? Had this happened all over, as natural as everything ever scientifically observed and recorded? Had I been unique in having survived where people went missing in forests all over the world? What if I had fallen in? The solitary life I had lived assured that no one would miss me, not even look for me. I would have ceased to exist and would quickly be forgotten by my co-workers and neighbors. My workspace and apartment cleaned out for new occupants, all my personal items buried in a trash heap. Maybe this forest comes alive as if to feed, maybe other places like this all over the world. I remembered reading about Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, showing Arjuna his devouring of all life, his mouth clamping down on existence as the destroyer of all worlds, worlds that have been, worlds that existed, and worlds that will be, all amounting to the same, the rest of the force being an extension to which this thing had been the heart center. It must eat in some horrifying symbiosis. Yet I survived. I hadn't vanished with the rest of the animals. It had been a tree root just outside its feeding diameter. But still, this voracious being had sucked me dry of all I had been. Had it been survival when it had succeeded in partially devouring me, leaving only an emptiness behind?